afternoon to everyone. We're joining each other from around the United States, which is kind of exciting, and I hope today, at whatever time of day it is, that this will be an hour well spent for you to be able to draw some new ideas and have some kind of hopefully insight and new materials that you can use to work with community readiness. My name is Dan Call. I am an assistant professor at the University of Kentucky in the Department of Community and Leadership Development. I'm also the associate director of CETIC, which is an acronym for Community Economic Development Initiative in Kentucky. Maybe more importantly is that what I bring to the session this morning is about 18 years of mistakes and experience in working with community groups. I've been in Kentucky for 2 years now, and prior to that, spent several years in the state of Kansas working with small volunteer groups around community improvement. The topic I'm talking about today is one that I hope is kind of a common exploration. It's not something that I am an expert on, but it's something that I have a deep interest in and have seen some kind of insight as I work toward better understanding this idea of community readiness. I will say that as I started talking about communities, community development, and community readiness, I often have people tell me, wow, yeah, that's a tough topic because there are members in our communities that are apathetic, they're disengaged, they're too busy, they don't care, they just, community development and community engagement is just entirely an uphill battle. And to that, I say, I sympathize, I empathize, but I also have found that while some community members are uninvolved, there are also community members out across the state and in communities everywhere that are really interested in trying to find better ways that they can connect with each other and get involved. And so it's really on that kind of philosophy or approach that you start with looking at and working with those members that have an interest in making their communities better. Often when communities talk about readiness, or when we would talk about readiness, I worked with the State Department as well as with the university. It was kind of an interesting approach because sometimes community readiness was thought of as either a community had it or it didn't. It was kind of a hot or cold, on or off approach. I look at it a little bit differently. I think of it more as kind of the collective community's willingness to take on new projects and kind of the status or state of their openness to community change. That's a bit of a working definition. The Community Readiness Handbook that's put out by a Tri-Ethnic Center out of Colorado State University defines community readiness as the degree to which a community is willing and prepared to take action on an issue. The Tri-Ethnic Center, as you read about some of their work, has a focus on community intervention that typically comes out of an approach working around drug use, alcohol abuse, and prevention strategies and working with communities. And what they found initially is that as they would bring intervention strategies to a community, sometimes those communities would just take off like a rocket. They would have wonderful success. They'd hit the ground running, and things that it seemed like everything just aligned properly, and they had great success. They also found that some communities just seemed to have fits and starts. They would falter, they would struggle. Nothing just seemed to align quite right. And so they started to talk about or think about this context of a status of or a stage of readiness, and how do you what is involved in bringing a collective community to a state of readiness, and how do you kind of assess that? So as I was doing some research kind of on a parallel, Albert Bandura uh, talked about kind of a community culture, or what he termed was collective efficacy. And collective efficacy was kind of a community's opinion of itself. And stronger efficacy was this belief in itself that we can do it, we can actually create change. And so, in many ways, there are some parallels here between kind of this community psychology of believing in ourselves that we can actually create meaningful change, um, as well as this concept of readiness. And I, sorry about that extra click there. I do have all of these in a reference slide at the end, and so you'll be able to connect with some of these resources, as well as websites like that's listed here on this slide and the next few. Um, this is from the University of Kansas, um, but they have a community toolbox that also shares some of the resources and information about community readiness. So the Triethnic Center, as it started to explore more about community readiness, came up with some assumptions or assertions about community readiness. The first is that often it's issue specific. In other words, a community might be more than ready to address one issue, and it doesn't mean that necessarily they're ready to address all issues, but that there are some issues that kind of spark or encourage readiness. As I worked in community development in rural Kansas, I would often have communities call, and it was kind of issue specific, but the grocery store just closed, or their gas station just closed, or the hardware store closed, and community members would call and say, what can we do? And so it seemed like in that situation that maybe issue specific, something kind of sparked or pressed on the readiness to address change. So while you're on your computer, type to me, is this the kind of thing that you also see in Alaska and North Carolina and Montana and all the places that we're representing here today? Have you found that communities tend to have a specific issue that drives their that's pushing their readiness? I see some say definitely. Yes. Okay. Good. Well, I think that's just maybe human nature. But as you start to think about readiness, then you start to say, well, okay, so it isn't necessarily that the entire community is ready to do everything, but on some issues, they rise to the surface. They have a little bit of a sense of priority and maybe urgency, so that a community is ready to start to address that. And as a community developer, I think it's helpful to think of readiness in that context. The second assumption that the Triethnic Center puts forward is that it can vary across dimensions. So it's not just issue specific, but that a community may be ready to address an issue in some ways on the same issue, but not others. In other words, they may want to address some of the symptoms that are kind of painful, but they may not be ready to tackle the whole cause, or may not feel like they have the ability to tackle the greater cause of the issues. Sometimes that's out of their control. So as you think about readiness, it's, I think, also important and interesting to start to put it into context of, so how can we kind of quantify a community's perception of what is it that they're really ready and wanting to do? One of the tools that's really helpful for that is the community capitals model. And to me, that's important because as you think through the dimensions, any area of intervention or activity within the community is going to start to impact other kind of aspects or realms of the community. And so this framework, I think, provides a nice visual of the aspects of community that might be impacted as change takes place in any one area, you can ask as a community developer, how will change in X, human capital, start to impact or affect these other aspects of community? A third assertion or assumption about community readiness that the Triethnic Center asserts is that the readiness can vary across different segments of the community. And this just kind of makes sense to me as a community developer, seeing different issues that some will really resonate more strongly for some groups, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the entire community is affected equally or will be as ready to deal with it. So again, I think as a community developer, you can think about this and start to think about following where the energy is, but also being considerate of what does this mean to other groups within the community? How might this affect them? And are there ways that we can be inclusive and engaging with them as well? So I see John, is talking about power structures and dynamics that are playing a role in community readiness. And I think that's right. Sometimes the community power structures can squash or restrict activities around, or at least often those in power tend or may tend to be able to kind of dominate what gets on the agenda and what kinds of activities get resources applied to them and which ones don't. So that's very insightful. Let me go on and say finally that assumption about community readiness is that starting to gauge or assess or knowing how to understand that readiness can be very essential for being able to address an issue. And so I hope these assumptions kind of start to tease apart this maybe sense of a hot and cold. Is a community ready or is it not? But to start to think of it in terms of how do we understand community readiness? And then given what we understand about how it affects different groups, if it is issue-based within the community, and who it doesn't affect maybe as directly, or how it may affect other groups differently, that we can start to think about how we do more effective outreach within the community. So one other element is, and I mentioned a sense of urgency. What I've found in Kansas, land of the tornadoes, is that nature sometimes will bring readiness to a community. I know the Carolinas are dealing with wildfires at this time. We've got all kinds of natural changes that may or may not be kind of pushing communities around a little bit. But I think community readiness for action can be driven out of necessity. And maybe equally important as community developers is this concept that it could also be kind of proactively cultivated. In other words, we might be able to do some things to help communities think more constructively about how they might engage to kind of elevate their overall collective state of readiness. I want to highlight this picture. It's the credits to Tom Leopold. He's from Kansas. This is a picture actually of Chapman, Kansas, and it has special meaning to me because I ran a program that oversaw the Art of the Week. This was a pride group, and each week they would have a competition over who had the nicest yard. And I love the sustainability, the tenacity of this group that got together and kind of is in a joking way holding up in a house that definitely is a tornado casualty. But again, I love that as an image of, in my mind, resiliency, community resiliency. So let me say just a moment in a differentiation. Sometimes we use the word community capacity. And I'm not certain that readiness and capacity are synonyms. I think they're related, but I don't know that they're synonymous. Community, this is from Chaskin. Community capacity is the interaction of human capital, organizational resources, and social capital within a given community that can be leveraged to solve collective problems and improve the well-being of a given community. In other words, they've got the agency, the capacity to be able to connect with resources and bring about kind of meaningful change. But to me, uh, and readiness may bring about capacity, but to me, I think of readiness as kind of a precursor of community capacity building. Um, it's not necessarily a does a community have readiness or not. It's not necessarily does the community have capacity or not. And I share that because I've worked with organizations that, from a state agency or from a perspective of sometimes government or foundations, we look at these communities and try to kind of assess or gauge where they're at. And sometimes I think our language may be a little loose, but I think technical assistance approaches, they really may want to gauge community readiness or capacity to think about really the likelihood of the investment success, right? They want to be able to know that the community has both that they're ready, that they're mobilized, that they're able to connect and bring about meaningful change. And so sometimes state, federal agencies, and others think about this from a technical assistance perspective of wanting to know or to be able to kind of quantify the level of community readiness. I think also that for those that have maybe follow more of a self-help community development approach, that community members also want to know that the community is ready to step forward and to be able to take some action. So I actually prefer to think of this readiness assessment tool that we'll share in a moment here um, as a tool that communities might use to self-assess their current situation and their openness for motivating change. So in this way, it's more of a self-help tool or process to help communities think about what they'll do with their readiness and actually to kind of self-assess to identify in what areas aren't we are there sections of the group or of the population that are less inclined or less willing or less interested in this type of change, and why is that, and what might help them to think about or talk about what this change means to them, so that in essence it can help them kind of move forward in their community readiness. So this is where, to me, this was kind of the insight. Um, yes, John asked a question. Thank you, John. Are there things that can be done to improve it? To me, this is where the rubber hits the road. Is that this is the exciting part as a community developer? It's not just that you have to say are they or aren't they. It's really this right here. Um, if there's any slide that you remember from this talk, I hope this is the one that inspires you. uh, to me, community readiness is something that can be cultivated and encouraged through activities and relationship building. I think that sometimes the conversation itself about the future of the community can kickstart a community's readiness. And actually, there's some studies that reinforce that. This one is out of Kostanov, Daniel Stanley, Gancia, and Cargo, but they assert that the mere act of conducting this community readiness assessment helped to improve awareness on the issues between leaders and stakeholders. In our uh, basically, the more the awareness is raised and the more that they can realize the importance and increase openness to create change, what they were able to do is actually bring about a status of increased readiness. So in Kansas, we held a community development academy, and one of the things we did in a community development academy is that we would ask the members of the community team that wanted to affect change to go out and actually sit down and visit with the banker, with the school superintendent, with the director of the Chamber of Commerce, with the Ministerial Alliance, go visit with the civic groups and talk to them and identify that, or tell them that you're interested in organizing for community improvement, and ask them if they would have interest, and what is if they were to think about community improvement, what would that look like, and how might they be involved. And what we found is that one of two things, kind of like what the Triethnic Center said. They'd come back and they'd say, "Oh gosh, nobody's interested at all." At which point we would say, um, "Why do you think that is? I mean, what's going on?" And there are times where communities, uh, for whatever reasons, hidden or otherwise, may not come around to or be ready to address specific issues. But often what would happen is that this group would come back and they'd say, no one had had this conversation before. And it wasn't until we started to talk about it that people started to see themselves in a position where they actually could affect change. And so the readiness kind of the ball started rolling downhill once these conversations were started. So I want to talk about some of these tools to support community readiness. One is this handbook that I've referenced, and that handbook is from the Triethnic Center, but the book itself is called Community Readiness for Community Change, and it has a tool in the handbook that communities can use to kind of go around and self-assess. They look at where are we at. Uh, why do you think we are where we are, and what do we need to do to move forward? So that in itself, I hope, is a helpful tool in thinking about community assessment. It doesn't just have to be that itself, though. Some communities will do assessments in specific areas. And so the University of Wisconsin, for example, has a community economic development preparedness index. And if you use it as a readiness index, you can do the same kind of thing. You can use it to walk around and ask questions and start to get a sense or garner a sense of what are people's concerns, or what are their values, and what are their priorities. And again, the act of doing the assessment sometimes can bring about a heightened state of readiness. There's also community energy, a renewable energy community preparedness self-assessment, and that's through e-extension. And so you can find it here under the Bioenergy 4 Preparedness Index. If your community is looking at exploring renewable energy or bioenergy, this could be a helpful set of questions or process to go through to help the community kind of better understand what's at stake, and to help people kind of come around or come together in terms of thinking collectively about their readiness. There's also a guide that, well, actually, the Kettering Foundation puts out a number of guides around issues of community. Kettering Foundation hosts the National Issues Forums guides, and those are on a national scale. However, as of the last couple of years, the Kettering Foundation has also been working toward more localized issues. And so one that's on the table and will be available soon is a discussion guide called The Future of Rural Communities. And that is a discussion guide that's intended to be used at a local level to help people come together and in a public type forum start a conversation about what does it mean to be from this community, and what do we hope for this community. It's not exactly a strategic planning process. It's kind of a pre-step of strategic planning. It's a step that basically gets people together and says, what might the future look like? what are some possible futures and what is the value or what is the future of rural America? So it depersonalizes it a little bit, but hopefully would bring a community at the end of that type of conversation to a point where they would ask, what does this mean for us? And what might we do to better organize or mobilize to take forward and to be kind of proactive? What other tools do you know of? I mean, given this kind of conversation line or thinking about tools that help people have conversations or do assessments, are there others that you have used or are aware of? I see John's typing. That's awesome. And anyone else? Yeah, please pitch in because this is a great opportunity to share ideas and tools. Oh yeah, I think I know of these North Carolina Grassroots Leadership Academy programs. They have a great reputation. Um, and so the leadership program, the Leadership Academy, can become that venue or vehicle to start people thinking about, talking about, and maybe even taking action on issues of local concern. And that's me saying that, but go ahead and is does that sound like how you would describe it from North Carolina? Interventions where you encourage community members. Yeah, John, what I know I'm asking you to type a lot, but say more. What type of demonstration projects? Excellent. And so back to North Carolina, sparking a deal of interest in initiatives, and kind of again maybe paving the way for people to have a way to get meaningfully engaged. I find that sometimes is the biggest challenge is people are interested but they don't know where to begin or how to organize to do that. And mentioned that yeah, that sometimes it is difficult to get out of the same 10 people. However, I would suggest too that as we touch on different aspects of community and different interests, you may find that new people come to the surface. So, block events, excellent. Charlotte, thank you. In Nebraska, um, to develop a tool for working with general community readiness. Oh, wonderful. I hope you'll share that, Charlotte, if it's not too soon. That sounds perfect. And John, excellent. Excellent. Good, good. I appreciate these connections and concepts. And Scott, keep going. You're going to tell us it's awesome. Good. The Center for Innovative and Entrepreneurial Leadership in Canada. Appreciate that. Let me talk about programs for a minute. And I think we'll share program ideas too. So those are tools. But I also wanted to highlight Scott Chaston's article in the Community Development Journal because I'm sure it's good. Excellent. We will look at that, or I hope that we all look at that. And uh, if you have a link to that, don't be bashful. Please post it because I think that's a great way to share information. Let me talk a little bit about programs and how programs can also support community readiness. Many of you probably are familiar with the First Impressions program. First Impressions program initially was developed in Wisconsin. I know it's taken root and shape in many other states, often through extension, cooperative extension. as a program that allows an opportunity for visitors to come in at upon the request of a community, to give them some feedback, kind of the impression from an outsider. And so, in many cases, this is set up as something similar to what a secret shopper program would be, where the reviewers would come in anonymously and spend a little time just socializing and experiencing the community, and then fill out some feedback and bring that back to the first impressions coordinator, that brings that back and reports it back to the community. We've started this program in Kentucky, and what we find is that that outsider perspective sometimes has more power uh, as an incentive, um, to really get people to say, well, boy, we've got to fix that. And so sometimes this is a type of a program where you can get an outsider's perspective, that can be very helpful to to recognize, and motivate that sense of a little bit of readiness to move forward. Um, with that, to kind of support and encourage readiness, we don't just end with the report. We actually have gone to the next step, if the community is interested and willing, to ask them, once they hear some of the feedback from outsiders, uh, what strikes them as important, and are there kind of some quick actions that the community would like to take. And so typically what our coordinator here, Melissa Bond with SETIC, does is helps group kind of organize by themes within the community to talk about action that they might consider. What would they like to see happen? And so they set some priorities and move forward. So that first impressions can be a kind of an initiator of readiness, and then, with some preparedness, you can help facilitate groups to be able to respond in a meaningful way to that. Another example, comes out of Kansas, and this is a group that was called the Climate and Energy Project, but they hosted basically a community competition. This was around energy conservation, and so they had 6 communities that agreed to participate, and they basically were trying to out conserve each other. I bring this up because this competitive approach for, in this case, energy conservation, really seemed to kind of spur that community forward. And so sometimes, thinking about how they might compare to other communities is is a strong motivator. I've included the link to that project in the resources if you'd like to do more investigation around that, what they call the climate challenge. The business retention and expansion program is another one that is common. I know Minnesota, Ohio have very strong BR&E programs. I'm sure there are other states that also have strong business retention and expansion programs. In Kentucky, we've been doing business retention and expansion for several years as well. And what we find, again, is that intervention of somebody caring and going out to do an assessment and to ask communities, what's important to you, and what are some things that you'd really like to see improved? Um, are there some, in what ways can the community be most supportive or helpful to you? That hearing, and then coming back and kind of compiling those, again, they're anonymous surveys that the local community leaders host, but we compile it and bring it back. And sometimes, again, it's that outsider coming back to report back to the community, um, some of these things, gives it what seems like a heightened priority or level of importance, when it's not just us within our small communities talking to each other, but somebody else listened and somebody else is kind of starting to report that back. Um, so it's actually at this stage that I'd like to ask you, what are some of the types of programs that your state offers that you feel um, may contribute to kind of lending that sense of either what Bandura was talking about collective efficacy, we can do it, um, or that helps to kind of spark or stir that sense of readiness that gets people engaged and starting to think or act about together in their for their future. Um, and I'm curious if you don't have some that already immediately you say, "Oh my gosh, yeah, we're doing that." To think also about, are there ways that the programs that you are currently doing might integrate kind of this understanding of cultivating readiness to help either take it the next step or to make it more effective? And I know that's a whole bunch of questions for one slide, but I'm really curious to hear and see some of your feedback. So thank you for writing. And Scott, thank you for posting um, some article connects there, some connections to those articles. John, thank you too. Lori, I want to hear about the Idaho Community Review. Who does that? I I can follow the link. That's excellent. That's a great resource. But is that a state program? Is that a university run program? Oh, Dave, good answer. Stronger economies, yes, as well as the turning the tide on poverty is one that I think those conversations through turning the tide also served as kind of a catalyst to get people feeling a little bit empowered and feeling in a better position to take action that's going to affect change. Lori, thank you. The Idaho University of Idaho extension, excellent. Or maybe that's different than the community review. But the rural partnership does the community review, if I'm reading this right. Yeah, and the state rural development council. So these are programs that perhaps or these are institutions or organizations that are doing outreach programs. So I will ask, yeah, keep going, but that question of, are there ways that this kind of uh, readiness assessment or process can contribute to the work that you're doing? Connie in Nebraska says entrepreneurial communities activation process and marketing hometown America. Excellent. So this is very good, guys. I appreciate your wisdom, and my intent today was again to explore a concept, not to uh, maybe have all the answers, but I hope that this has sparked some kind of creative thinking uh, about how we think about readiness and how we might better cultivate readiness through some of the actions that we can take the and by thinking about again the different levels of investment that community members may have and to consider what's important to them as we get them involved. Um, so Scott Chasden wrote that the leadership and civic engagement created the county bridging leadership programs to encourage small towns and the county to work together. Excellent. Great resources, and I appreciate your posting these links. Um, good. Well, so I hope this is a little bit of food for thought in the middle of your day. I did also post some of the references that I've talked about. I'm not sure if I specifically highlighted, but the Aspen Institute has a resident engagement guidebook that I found very helpful. Bandura's work, Chaskin's work, of course, around community capacity and understanding that. It's a little more academic. The toolbox, if you're not familiar with the community toolbox out of the University of Kansas, um, it's rich. There's a whole realm of resources that you can wander into. It's a forest. Um, it's a great resource. Um, Again, the energy improvement link on driving demand, that is in reference to the Climate Challenge project under Fuller and Kunkel. Also, then the Community Readiness International Journal of Environmental Research was the article that started to link um, that actually just walking through that readiness assessment does improve or change the level of kind of self readiness for people to take action. And again, the Triethnic Center, which I think you'll find as a helpful handbook and resource. That last Plested Edwards and Jumper Thurman reference is the one where you'll find the handbook itself with the assessment tools in it. So good. You guys have made this a great webinar. I appreciate your contributions and your willingness to share. So thank you all.
Yes, Dan, thank you so much. And I posted the link to our webinars, and this one will be posted there hopefully this week, if not this week, the beginning of next week. And you can check out previous webinars there as well. So thank you so much for participating and for joining us today, everyone.
Excellent. And happy afternoon.
Have a great day.
Yeah, thank you all.